Hey guys, it's Kat here from knitcatpattywork.com. I've got another beginner knitting tutorial for you. Last video I showed you how to do the backwards loop cast on, which is I think the easiest cast on that you can possibly do. And I'm here to show you today the cable cast on, which I think is the second easiest one to do. And before we get started, I just want to apologize for my old dressing gown. It is absolutely freezing today, and I just couldn't bear to put on something else. I've got my hot water bottle tucked under my dressing gown, so my apologies for looking a little bit ratty, but it is just so cold today. It's supposed to warm up tomorrow, so hopefully I can get out of this dressing gown for a bit. So to start off with, what you're going to need is, just like last time, some yarn and some needles. If you're an absolute beginner knitter, use an 8-ply simple yarn like this. This is a very basic acrylic yarn, as you can see, very inexpensive. And I'd recommend using 4mm needles if you're unfamiliar with your tension. I do have a slightly loose tension, so I'm using 3.75mm needles, which is the equivalent of a UK 9 and I believe a US size 5. So this cast on, if you're not familiar with knitting terms at all, casting on is what you do to start knitting, to get your first line so that you can actually start knitting some stitches. So what you'll want to do to get started is to take your yarn. So we're going to leave a long tail, about 6 inches I think is a good kind of rule of thumb, unless you need to do seaming with the tail, but 6 inches is a good amount to start off with. And you're going to do a slip knot. So I showed you how to do this in the last video, but if you haven't seen that video, I'll just show you again. So basically what you do is you make a little loop with your yarn and you make another loop and push that through. And it's just basically like tying a knot, but you're not pulling the yarn all the way through. You're just going to pull the loop through and pull it tight. So it's called a slip knot in knitting. It also gets called a quick release knot. So you've got that little knot, so it means you can tighten it and loosen it. And we're going to put it around, slip it on one needle. And what we've got here basically is the slip knot makes one stitch. And the way we count stitches is we count the number of bars of yarn that are on our needle. So there's 1 bar there now. So I'm going to show you now, using the cable cast on, how to do the rest of your stitches, the rest of the bars of yarn on your needle. So what you do is you place the empty needle underneath that stitch that you made with the slip knot. So if you are right-handed, you'll want to hold the empty needle in your right hand. And I knit continental, so I hold the working yarn, which is what this yarn that's attached to the ball is called. I hold that in my left hand, but if it is more comfortable or more intuitive to you to hold the yarn in your right hand or your dominant hand, then go ahead and do that, and that's fine. So that is just a side point. So what I've done is I've put my empty needle underneath the stitch. You can see just completely underneath it. We'll hold it right up against the stitch. Take our working yarn and just wrap it once upwards around the empty needle. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use this needle to bring this bit of yarn that you've just looped up to the other side of the needle in your left or non-dominant hand. So fairly simple, you just do that. So I'll show you again. So we put the needle underneath the slip knot, we wrap the yarn upwards once, and then we transfer that yarn to the other side of the needle by pulling the right hand or dominant hand needle out from underneath the slip knot. So we just pull it a little way, so you've got like a little loop on this needle here, on the right hand needle, and you've still got your bar from the slip knot. All we're going to do is we're going to transfer that loop onto the left hand needle, and we just tighten it. Don't pull it too tight. I think that's a fairly common mistake for new knitters, and it's certainly something I used to do before I really got into knitting. So just make it slightly snug. That will make your knitting a lot easier, because if it's too tight then knitting is no fun. So we've got our we've now made one more stitch, so we've got 2 stitches on the needle, and so that is basically what I've just done is exactly how you do the cable cast on for every other stitch. So I will show you how to do the next stitch. So you put it underneath the stitch you just made, so I will just turn it round. You can see that there's like a bar of yarn like twisted around itself on this right hand side here. What I'm doing is I am going between the needle and that twisted bit of yarn, poking it through underneath the highest stitch that I've made. Now that I've done that, I do exactly what I did before. So I take my working yarn and wrap it once upwards around the empty needle, and then I transfer this bit of yarn that I've just wrapped around to the other side of the needle in my left hand, the needle with the stitches on it. I transfer that using the needle in my right hand. So just do that and pull it tight. Pull it out, and then the loop that's on my right hand needle I just place on top of the left one, and then take the right hand needle out, and then I can pull it tight. I'll show you again how that works. So I place my empty needle, which is in my right or dominant hand, between the left hand needle and the little like twisted line of yarn that I've made here. Put it between the needle and that yarn underneath the highest most stitch that I've made. Then I take my working yarn and wrap it once upwards around the right hand needle. Then I pull the right hand needle back out, bringing this working yarn with me. Then I pull it out a little bit to transfer onto the left hand needle, and then I pull it tight. I will show you a few more times just how I did that. I'll go slowly, and then once you have finished casting on however many stitches you need, you can start knitting. And my next video will show you how to do the knit stitch. So there, I've cast on a few more stitches, and we count the number of stitches by the number of bars of yarn that are on our needle. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches there. So I hope that you found this helpful. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, just so I know that it's the kind of thing that you are interested in seeing. And stay tuned for my next video, which will show you how to do the knit stitch. And if you want to be notified about that, then don't forget to hit the subscribe button and click the bell as well, so you'll find out when I upload the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.